Hi, thank you for joining me today. I have with me the wonderful Stef Cybichowski. I have a
Well done.
fancy the last name. I'll try to go over it a bit. This is for my series that I am interviewing different three principles practitioners for what I'm calling Love in the Time of COVID. Takeoff on Love in the Time of Cholera, the title of a book. I just think that this is the perfect time to really be talking about love and relationships. And Stef is in a long distance relationship. So being apart from his partner is not unusual for him. And I thought it would be really good for other people who are having a really hard time either being apart from their partner because they're social distancing, or they're in a dating situation, they're single and dating, and now nobody wants to meet up. Of course, they can't meet up in person. So let's find out from Stef how he and his partner have overcome their separation.
Thanks, Laurie. It's a really good question, and I was reflecting on it earlier. I've heard so many times from so many different teachers that relationship is the one area that kind of that grows us, has the potential to grow us more quickly and more deeply than any other area in life. And I was contemplating that, thinking, looking back on my relationship, which is now sort of 3 years old. And my partner lives in Mexico and I live in the UK, so it's like 6,000 miles between us, which is a kind of extreme social distancing. And of course now, because of social distancing and because I can't travel, we haven't seen each other for a couple of months now. So I was thinking back to what has been different about this relationship to other relationships that I've had, where I actually sort of shared a space, been close physically to people. And I think what came to mind was initially our ways of communicating were by WhatsApp message, by email, and occasionally by conference calls like these. And when I think back to how that relationship developed initially, it started off with my partner sending me a poem. And to be honest, I'd never really been very deeply interested in poetry. But there was something in this poem that was pertinent to both of us in our relationship. So I took the time to sit down, to really be with this poem and find out. And then we had this amazing discussion between us about what we saw in it, what was relevant to both of us, and what might not be relevant to both of us. But it was a shared experience that, if I'm honest, probably wouldn't have happened any other way. If we'd have been in the same physical space, if we'd have been having a normal kind of interaction where you were living life with its distractions and with its, I may, if I'm absolutely honest, I may have kind of dismissed it as I'm not a poetry person. Does that make sense?
How did that happen? Why do you think that? How did that happen? That you all of a sudden got interested in poetry, or this particular poem?
I think that in the isolation, in the I had time to sit down with the poem, and I had the time to reflect on what it meant to her, and therefore what it meant to us. And I had time to be in the moment with it, you know. It wasn't like, oh, I should do this, I have to do this. It was the kind of curiosity, I guess. It was a curiosity about what was happening in my life and what was happening in that moment with her, and there was something in the poem that actually captured my imagination, actually came to the surface and spoke to me, and I'm not sure that would have been given the time to grow in like a normal everyday living together situation, you know.
Right, you'd be distracted with other things, doing things, making plans, whatever.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, the other thing that I remember was that because at that time when we first started speaking to each other, we had absolutely no idea of how it would be possible for us to be together. No idea. It just wasn't on the table. So it seemed to me that we were in a space of just having no expectations of the relationship. We weren't kind of thinking, oh, I hope this person doesn't turn out to be the last one, and what I want them to do this for me, and if they don't do this, then there wasn't any of that, because there was no expectations, because we didn't know how it was going to work. And there was a way, because we were both in the conversation about the three principles. There was a trust in life, in if life wanted us to happen, then it would show us the way. So being in that space of trusting meant that we weren't in the past about, oh, I hope it's not going to be the same as that, and we weren't in the future as much as, well, if this doesn't turn out, then that's it. If this doesn't happen, then we were kind of forced to be more in the moment, I think. And so we would message each other with things like poetry, and we would message each other with photographs that kind of stirred our souls, you know. So it could be art, it could be a quotation, it could be we go out for walks, maybe not together, but as a way of being together, we would take photographs of things that meant something.
Yeah.
You know, look at this sunrise, or look at this flower, and we'd message that. So it was a way of being in the moment together without being together. And it was so beautiful. It is so beautiful, you know.
Yeah, you got to share what was meaningful, each of you.
Yeah.
which is, maybe would not have happened. I loved what you said, that that stuff may not have even happened if you were in the same town and able to see one another. It may not have gone to that depth
Yeah.
so easily, so easily.
I'm absolutely convinced of that. I've never had a relationship like it before, where there was so much intimacy, moment to moment, you know, in ideas, in learning, in exploring, in kind of being with each other, much more than we would have been physically together. You know, I can't really explain it very well, but it was magical. It is magical, you know. And when we did eventually get together, it was not like we hadn't been together. Do you know what I mean? It was
It was already,
like we kind of knew everything that was going on in our lives. We knew, you know, we had so much to talk about, so much that to explore, you know, that we'd started exploring. It wasn't just poetry, you know, we would share books, and we would share videos, and we would share music, because I'm a musician, so that was my thing. And we found such common ground in those areas that, yeah, we may not have found if we hadn't have had the time and the space to do it.
yeah, I love that. It's just such a great example for people, especially now, and even beyond this social distancing time, because I think that at least my experience has been in the single world of people just have this thing that they have to get together, that it's all about the physical. And there's so much more than physical connection. I mean, you know, knowing that we were going to be doing this, I did a little research and I Googled, I had this, I know I've heard of famous couples who got together, either, you know, like celebrities who are living in very, you know, they're filming in very different parts of the world and sometimes apart for 2 weeks. I think, you know, I read about the 2 week rule where they'd always manage to meet somewhere in the middle, but they were apart for 2 weeks. But even people who first met throughout history, that it would begin with letter writing. Like I think I sent you one, there was a naval officer who was on a ship for a long time, and they were like pen pals. They never expected that it would wind up being a marriage and a family out of that. They were just enjoying letter writing. Letter writing. It seems like that's a lost art to me. You know, people don't like writing. They don't really like emailing or texting, but I think that could be such a rich experience, like you found.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And I'll tell you, for me, you know, my partner's life and her culture and her upbringing, her education is just so different to mine. We, you know, we may never have sort of got together if we had been physically together, because it seemed that there was such a clash, you know. But you know, I honestly, I thank God, because she taught me so much, you know. She taught me to hear beauty through poetry. She taught me how amazing the Latin American culture is, and the history. And she taught me about, about dance. She taught me about a woman's view, about feminist issues, things that affected her on a daily basis that I as a man had no idea, not a clue. So my life is just immeasurably richer. And that all came through the writing. That all came through the writing. We could have weeks and weeks and weeks apart and then just be together for a week or two and then be away for weeks and weeks and weeks. But the richness was still there. The communication was still fresh and beautiful and in the moment. Yeah. Such a gift, Laurie, such a gift.
Absolutely. You and the two of you met at a Three Principles seminar, I think. Is that right?
We did, yeah. The Three Principles program, live, yeah. So yeah, I there is no doubt that our growing understanding of the principles helped us to open up to what was available, to what was on the table, without us having to revert back to, we must be together, we must live together, we must have a normal relationship in order for this to work. Because that would have been easy to do.
That would have been easy to do.
It would have been, if we hadn't have had the understanding, I think it would have been possible for us to have not had the opportunity to experience the beauty, because our stories, or I'll talk for me, if my story could possibly have been, well, I can't have a close relationship, intimate relationship, if I'm not living with the person. I can't have a relationship with somebody who lives in a country where I can't speak the language. I can't have a relationship with somebody whose life is just so different to mine. That kind of closed-mindedness. That was possibility. That was a possibility.
Anything is possible. But you spoke about the understanding that helped the two of you look beyond all the, quote unquote, what's normal, what's not normal, the social conditioning. So can you speak more about that? What was the understanding that the two of you shared that helped you move you beyond to something beautiful?
So, two things really. I guess the first thing is that we had a growing understanding of where our experience of life was coming from. So in reality, when I had those questions in my mind about, well, this this can't work because it's, you know, I don't understand the language. I'm not part of the culture. I don't understand poetry. You know, I don't understand art. This person is completely different to me. If I didn't know that those thoughts were coming from my insecurity, coming from my fear of trying something new, from my fear of from my worry about whether it could work or not. If I didn't know that that was what was going on, that was what the feelings were, the insecure feelings, then it would have been very, very easy to convince myself that what my thoughts were telling me were true. And so the understanding, what it gave me in that time, was just not to hold those thoughts so tightly, not to give in to the insecurity and the feelings of fear and worry, but to honor the wonderful feelings, you know, to honor the attraction, and to be willing to try new things. The other thing that I learned from the understanding was that underneath the contaminated thinking that I have had for most of my life, there was a space. There was a deeper dimension to me, and I think what that allowed me to do was, when I touched this deeper dimension, when I slow down, when I settle down and pay less attention to my noisy thinking, then what comes out of me from that space is much kinder, you know, much more compassion, much more love. And so what I found with my partner was, with the understanding, we could tell when we were in that space. And that's when I was speaking to her from that space, she was hearing it with that space too. And not always, but when I wasn't in that space and I was speaking from the insecurity and the fear and the worry and the noise and, you know, then either one of us, you know, could kind of get a sense of where we were coming from, and so we had this, instead of us both coming, you know, talking from that place of contamination, one of us could kind of step back and speak from that place of love. And often the conversation would be, you know, I might be going, nah, this, that, and the other, and she would be able to step back and say, I can see you're suffering. How can I help? instead of reacting to my noise, and vice versa. And that makes for a relationship that understands, a relationship that is more compassionate, and a relationship that is kinder and flows.
I love what you said about the ability, every human has the ability to not react to another person as long as they're cognizant of where that person is coming from. They're coming from their own upset. That's why, like you call it, contaminating thoughts that contaminate our space of well-being and love. All those insecure thoughts that get in the way of just your love.
Yeah.
But knowing that and having that understanding, as you say, understanding that that's how life comes through all of us. Sometimes it comes through with some nasty thinking.
Yeah.
And when the partner understands that, they don't blame the other person being in a space of nasty thinking.
Yeah.
You just, like you say, take a step back. And I love how she would say to you, "Can I help? I see you're struggling."
Yeah. And there's a really, really important part for that I learned with relationships, is that when I know how lost I can get in my thinking, in my fear and my worry, I know how lost I can get. And I know that every time at some point it flows through and I'm in a different place and the world looks different. So if I understand that about me, then when I see it happening in somebody else and I'm not collaborating in it, then having compassion for them, to see that it's the most innocent thing in the world to get lost in, and it ain't personal. It's not about me, or it's not about her. It's just us getting lost temporarily. That is so beautiful. It's so miraculous, you know, to know that it's all innocent.
Yeah, and it's temporary. It's not permanent, you know, because people get so scared.
Yeah, this is how it's going to be forever. Yeah. Yeah. What do I do about it? You know? Yeah. There's nothing to be done.
Yeah. Everyone gets lost. Yeah. Everyone from time to time, you know? You could hear a song on a radio and have something trigger that sets you off. And
oh boy. Oh boy.
You don't even know where it came from sometimes.
Yeah.
You just set off, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
How beautiful to be in a relationship where at least one person, but you're in a relationship where both people have this understanding about how life comes through us, through our own thinking.
Yeah.
It's not coming at us.
Yeah. And that's also the beauty of it. That's where the trust comes from, in that, you know, life, the principles, the energy of life is flowing through us. It's not up to us to control it. It's not up to us to control the relationship. It's not up to us to find you know, to plot a direction and a place to get to, and You know, there's something so freeing about knowing that it's all guided, knowing that it's life that's living us, not our insecurities and our fears and our worst nightmares about what could happen if.
Yeah, there's so many ways we can scare ourselves, right?
Yeah. And that's just our story, isn't it? You know, we have a story about ourselves, we have a story about the other person, we have a story about how life should be. And I think that's not who we are.
Yeah.
We aren't our story. And when we show up in that place without our stories, that's when true connection, that's when there is no separation.
And
That's when life can have its way with us, you know.
Yeah. That's when life can have its way with us. When we get out of the way.
Yeah,
Get out
exactly.
of
Exactly.
love and beauty coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so beautiful, Stef. Yeah, it can help so many people to recognize that we're all in this boat together. We're all in this soup of thought, It's always running through us, but it doesn't have to run us. And it's not who we are.
Yeah.
There's always a beautiful feeling to sink back into.
Yeah.
Go back into.
Yeah.
And that's so valuable for people to look for that rather than caught up in what they think is happening in that moment to them.
Yeah. And that's the guidance system, isn't it? You know, when we're caught up and we're in having arguments or disagreements and feeling angry or feeling sad or feeling, then the only thing that the feelings are telling you about is that you're in the illusion, that you're not in what is, you're in what isn't. And what is who we really are. What is that space of connection, that space of pure love, the absence of judgment, the place where the kindness and compassion and the seeing of innocence. That's where it comes from. That is what is true. That is what is true. And like you say, beautifully, it's the feeling that tells us that. The system is so well designed. We just misunderstand it, don't we?
Right. We're a part of an amazing design. And that's all it is to gain an understanding. Now we have like not the workbook, but the guidebook, right? It's not, how would you describe it? We just have a way to understand how we work through mind, thought, and consciousness. That's what's taking this loving, pure energy and bringing it into this physical world that we experience. And then with our ability to think, we make up all sorts of thoughts, good, bad, and indifferent. But yet we have the guidance system, as you say, our feelings. We can feel when our thinking has run amok.
Yeah.
And we can get back on track just by, recognizing. Now, we just got caught up and apologize, and, and then it's over. It's over. Nothing to talk about, even. The old way was, I had a client earlier who was talking about how he used to get into talking about upsets with his partner. Like they honestly thought the way to get better is to figure out or understand what the upset was about.
Yeah.
And the only understanding anyone needs is to know where upset comes from. It comes from an upsetting story we're telling ourselves.
Yeah. And that's very much like the going back into the past, even if it was only half an hour ago, and try and find the answer. Right. That's like we're trying to fix our thinking with our thinking.
Right. Trying to fix our thinking with our thinking.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of recognizing the innocence of it.
Right.
There's no blame. There's no getting it right or wrong. It's just us getting lost again in the moment.
Having a human moment.
Exactly.
Client who would say, "Oh, I know now. I know what happens when." And when I get caught up, I just say, "Oh, I'm sorry, my human is showing."
Yeah. Whoops.
I said to her, "Oh, for her that I really like that line. My human is."
Yeah.
So who can't relate to it?
Exactly. We're all the same.
We're all the same. We all work the same.
Yeah.
It's so comforting to know that nobody's better than anyone else. Nobody's less than anyone else. We're all coming from the same exact oneness of life, this spiritual unknown magic.
Yeah.
Magic. You can't touch it, feel it, taste it, but we know that it's there. It's taking care of us somehow.
Well, that's beautiful. As you were saying that, I was thinking, it's resting in the unknown, resting in the mystery of life, because we can't see the big picture. We can't see how life works. The problems happen when we think we do.
Yeah.
When we see that we haven't got a clue, we really don't understand how it works, but it works. That's the evidence is everywhere. Nature comes and it nourishes us, it lives us, it breathes us, it feeds us. It brings us back into balance without us having to do it. So we don't have to know. All we have to do is fall into it, relax into life, and allow life to guide us.
Yeah.
Just get in the flow and allow it to carry us.
I mean, what a relief, right? I mean, just knowing that is so calming.
Yeah.
And forget, Because we're
We forget. Yeah. Yeah. Every now and again we think, oh no, I need to control this bit. I'm not going to be okay if I don't control this bit. And then how does that work out? Life goes, okay, you'll be back. I know. Yeah.
Well, this has been such a delight, Stef.
It really, really has, Laurie. Yeah.
I don't know if there's any last things you'd like to leave people who are listening with, as far as just had a capacity to have a beautiful life and have a beautiful relationship, even with so many, people will say, oh, but how can I have a relationship with somebody who's so different than me? Well, you're the perfect example that there's so much beauty in that. Are you kidding? It doesn't matter how different.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if they match who you thought you would be with, and none
Exactly.
of that's just stories we tell each other. It's the feelings you can fall in together. You happen to find somebody who is able to fall into that beautiful feeling with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you so much. I think this will help, whoever listens.
Thank you for having me, Laurie. Thank you for exploring with me. It's been really, really lovely. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Have a great rest of the day.